I'm Caleb from Private Auto, and today we are talking about the Raptor. Now, before we dive into the video, this specific truck is listed for sale on privateauto.com, the first transactional marketplace that makes buying and selling cars privately safe, simple, and secure, meaning you can close a deal anytime, any place. Now, this model here is the 2017 model year of this truck, but let's go back in time and talk about some of the history behind the Raptor Edition of the Ford trucks. Now, the Ford F-150 Raptor Edition was first unveiled in 2008 at the SEMA show, and shortly thereafter, it raced in the Baja 1000, where it got third place. And they took a big risk there because they put in this truck almost standard, just with a few upgrades in that race, and it performed pretty well. The first F-150 Raptor hit the market in 2010, where they sold just over 7,000 units. Now it's estimated that Ford produces just over 30,000 units of the Raptor Edition of the three models that Ford produces. How can you tell a Raptor Edition is a true Raptor Edition? You look at the front of the truck. They replaced the Ford blue logo emblem that usually sits right here, and they replaced it with this all black Ford text across the grille, which in my opinion is probably one of the coolest things about this truck. Now, if I'm being honest with you guys, before about a week ago, I thought that the Raptor was a model that Ford produced. It turns out that the Raptor is a special edition of three different models that Ford produces. You got the F-150 here. You can also find the Raptor Edition on the Ranger and on the Bronco. But let's dive into what makes a Raptor a Raptor. So in the Raptor editions of those three models, what comes standard with them is all-terrain tires. You also get all-wheel drive, which is not the case in kind of the basic models that you get, and a mid-travel suspension system. It's also equipped with the highest performance engine available in each of those three models, the F-150, the Ranger, and the Bronco. Now, as I said before, this one is the 2017 model, which means it's the second generation of the F-150 Raptor. First generation launched way back in 2010, and the third generation launched in 2021. So let's talk about some specific things unique to the Generation 2 of the F-150. The second edition is 500 pounds lighter than the first generation because they used more aluminum throughout the body. All right, now I pull out my phone here because I'm not an engine guy, but the engine is different here versus the first generation. The first generation had just your standard V8. This one comes with a 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6, which gives this baby 450 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, something else that's unique about the second generation F-150 Raptor Edition is it's the first non-commercial vehicle to use a 10-speed transmission. Now, something that was carried over from the first generation of the F-150 Raptor is it comes in both Super Crew and Super Cab configurations. Differences there is the Super Cab has a bit smaller space in the back, so therefore the doors are a bit narrower, and you have to open up the front doors before you can open up the back doors. The Super Crew configuration means all four doors open the same way, and it gives you much more room in the back. Now let's dive into the pricing of this truck. Now, when this model first launched all the way back in 2017, as it is the second generation, it launched with the price tag of $52,505 for the Super Crew configuration, and the Super Cab configuration launched with the price tag of $49,520. Now, the Raptor edition of these vehicles does depreciate at a much lower rate than its standard counterpart, like the F-150 Standard Edition. So you can expect a Raptor edition of an F-150, specifically the second generation, to depreciate at about 25% over the course of 3 to 5 years. So right now, about 5 years later, you can expect a price tag of around $40,000-ish, depending on the condition of the truck, which, if you're selling an F-150 Raptor, is way better than the trade-in value of about $27,000. Now, before we hop inside this monster, be sure to like this video and subscribe, as we will be releasing a new used car review video every single week. Now let's do a rapid fire of the inside of the F-150 Raptor Edition. You got these super nice leather deep seats with the Raptor logo embroidered in them. You've got storage space here, a cup holders here, tons of storage space here, cup holders for your passengers back here. Then you've got a performance steering wheel with red stitching at 12 o'clock so you know when your steering wheel is straight. Then you've got your 8-inch LED display with Sync 3 connectivity system that is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then my favorite thing about the inside of the truck is that you have these awesome auxiliary switches which are fully customizable to whatever you might need, whether it's the winch in the back of the truck or the light bar in the front of the truck. Whatever accessories you get, you can program to these babies. Plus, feels like you're in a spaceship. All right, now as with most F-150s, the inside is super roomy here. But one of my favorite things is all the different like terrain modes that you can have, which is unique to the Raptor edition of the F-150. Now you have normal, which is 2-wheel high for the best fuel efficiency that you can get. You also have the weather, which is really just all-wheel drive, so you can drive in kind of all types of weather. The mud and sand mode is basically your 4-wheel high, which is locked through the transfer case for increased traction in deep, loose surfaces, and your rear differential is automatically locked. Then you have your Baja, which is also 4-wheel high, but this one is locked through the transfer case and has unique transmission shift schedules and engine controls with anti-lag technology for a quick response that you might need. And then last but not least, you have your rock crawl mode or your 4-wheel low, which is locking rear differential with additional gear reduction to provide a 50-to-1 crawl ratio. All right, now before we go on a drive, there's a ton of controls on the steering wheel. You also got some paddle shifters back here that are nice magnesium. But you can control these steering modes here. You have your standard, which is just your normal everyday driving. You have your sport mode, which makes it a little bit more responsive, a little bit heavier in the steering wheel. And then you have comfort, which makes it a bit lighter in the steering wheel as well. You can also control all of your drive modes from the steering wheel itself, as well as like music, Bluetooth, cruise control, all of that stuff. So we'll go ahead and shift it into gear here, and we'll go for a little drive. Now, one thing I'm already noticing as we've started this drive here is I am 5'5.5", so I am vertically challenged. So I would say for the vertically challenged people here, this truck makes you feel massive, and I mean massive. So I don't know if that's unique to like the Raptor edition or that's just how all F-150s feel, but it feels massive. Now, as far as the driving feel here and the acceleration, I would compare it to just kind of like your truck. We'll go ahead and step on the gas here. Oh yeah, that was good. So you definitely feel that V6 engine and that EcoBoost kick in when you floor it. It definitely has a nice get up for a truck, which I think is obviously in the Raptor edition. It's the street legal version of a Baja 1000 racing truck. So I would expect it to have some nice power and some nice torque going on when you push on the acceleration. And the steering wheel right now, it's in like normal mode, and I would say it's like your normal gas car, like your normal truck. Doesn't feel any different than that. The one thing I do appreciate about like having all the controls on the steering wheel is you can focus. It's almost like playing a video game. Like you're holding the controller, you're focused on the screen. Here you're focused on the road, and you can control pretty much everything you need to from the steering wheel, not having to look over and control things from the center console. I'm gonna go ahead and try this acceleration again. There is a gap between when you step on it, right? So if I step on it right now, it's gotta pick up a little bit. But once it pulls in, once it really takes hold, that acceleration's there. You can tell this was built off of a racing truck inspiration. Yeah, I just can't get over the size of this. I am a vertically challenged man, and I feel massive in this truck. It would also give a lot of confidence on the road too. Like if you were to run into an aggressive driver in a small car, I have a lot more confidence in this truck. So as far as the steering goes, from the turns that we've made so far, there is a good feel to it, but you do have to put in some effort. So let's go ahead and change it to the sports steering mode right now. It's funny, I don't know how much, like even the cars that I have, they have different steering modes, and I don't know how much I actually use the different steering modes. It's very rarely. So like right there, it felt normal. Like even though it's on sport, like I do feel like there's a little bit more resistance. You don't have to turn as far to get it to turn. And if I change it to comfort from sport, is way lighter. It feels like power steering is engaged more versus just like normal steering. So yeah, comfort, like the resistance right here at, what would that be, 45 degrees is almost non-existent. There's almost no resistance, whereas there was a lot of resistance in the sport steering. So I think 90% of the time you're gonna be using comfort. And then when you get on the trails, when you get off-road, when you get off the road, you'd probably use sport a lot more as well. Now let's dive into some final thoughts. If you are an off-road adventurer, this truck is for you. I mean, Ford thought of pretty much everything when creating the F-150 Raptor Edition. You've got the roof-mounted switches up top that you can really use to power pretty much anything. You can assign a winch, you can assign a light bar, you can assign any of your accessories to those auxiliary switches. Pretty awesome. You've got the really beefed up tires here. You've got the off-road beefed up suspension that uses Fox shocks. You've also got the increased performance in the engine. You have the rear locking differential. You have all the various driving and terrain modes that you can use in terms of like snow, off-roading, mud, sand, whatever have you. You've got the rock guards underneath here. You've got the rock guards on the side. You have a much more lifted cab compared to the other trims of the F-150. So that makes this thing really a off-road monster or animal, hence the name Raptor. So if you are in the market for an off-road animal that can tackle any trail in any environment, and you also want to look the part because it looks pretty awesome, this truck is for you.